can actually access the information using two applications from the Play Store, Google Play Store. That is the Meeting, that's Google Meeting, and Google Classroom. We will go into detail once we get into after the presentation. So let me just try to get a presentation up and ready. And I thank you again for this opportunity. So I just at this time, I'll just ask everyone if they are able to see the screen, presentation screen.
Yes, sir.
All right, so this is just a quick start guide, basically how to access your Google Classroom. At the end of the day, there are two types of teaching method that we will look at. We'll look at the teaching method where the teacher is in control of the entire class and teach all the subject areas. And then we look at the subject teachers who just comes into the classroom at given time to deliver their teaching. It could be a PE teacher, a reading teacher, a library teacher, and so on. Okay. This session is being recorded, and you can use the recording afterwards, and the presentation will be made available as well. Right. So what is the objective of this presentation? It's a quick start guide, and we want to create a Google Classroom using the Ministry of Education email system that they gave to you. So before the presentation is finished, I will just ask that you try to memorize your email and password that was sent to you, because we need that in order to start. So the quick start guide. Why Google Classroom? Google Classroom enables teachers to create an online classroom area in which they can manage all the documents that their students need. So we can have a situation where we have assignments, we have quiz, we have tests. You want to share with the students a video, any form of classwork material. So it's just designed to give you one platform to give you all of that. It's integrated with other add-ons like Google Meet, Calendar, and once you're in the Google Suite platform, basically your Google Calendar would be something that guides your day-to-day. So it's almost like your lesson plan. You put inside your calendar all the activities that you need to plan out for the day. Teachers can make assignment, quiz material from within the classroom, which their student complete and turn in to be graded. So it also has an automated system that can allow you to grade and monitor the student progress. You can also add parents to the platform, so persons who want to keep a track of what the children are doing and what activity the teacher is sending out for each week. So there are some simple basic steps how to get access to the classroom. We will go in more hands-on at the end of the presentation, but this is just to give you a guide. First, as I said before, the first requirement and that is mandatory is that you must have a Google Chrome installed browser on your computer. And from the Google Chrome browser, you'll be able to access all of the information that Google Classroom offers, including Google Meet and Google Calendar. We have to sign in with the Ministry of Education account, and teachers must remember that only the students that have a Ministry of Education email account can access this platform. If you don't have a Ministry of Education email account, you cannot access this platform, right? So, so once you start to add the students to it, only the emails that belong to the Ministry of Education can be there. We will get to the section where we create the classroom, we add our topics or add our subjects, we fool around with it, and it's an hands-on session, as I said before. We get the opportunity to create the class dialog box, and this we will determine what the class name will be. So from now you can start to think about that. It could be a grade 6 G Brown or grade 6 YB, whatever the classroom might need. At the end of the day, we should be able to create and edit our classroom. We should be able to have an idea as to how to add our subjects. The step-by-steps are there, so we're going to see how we add our subjects, or we can add materials to those subjects and assignments for each week. It can be a steep learning curve for a lot of persons, but once you get into the rhythm, Google Classroom is very easy to understand. All right. So we have to understand how to add our student too. There are many ways to do this, but my recommendation in this process for the primary school is that you add the students. Each teacher would add their students rather than relying on the students to be added, to add themselves to the class. How to set up your quiz, we look at that because at the end of the day, we have to get feedback and assessment of how the students are doing. So what we'll do is to create a quiz or an assignment quickly to see how best we can manipulate those. Things you can do in Google Classroom to keep your students focused. You can add announcements. So if you just want to share something quickly with your students, you can always add those announcements and their scheduled meetings within Google Classroom itself. So you can have those impromptu things. You can add resource materials. I think most of the teachers would be using the resource material as probably the most likely thing, or the thing that you use the most. So you have like videos, you can share videos, you can share link on YouTube, you can share the homework, all of that can be to get the students engaged. We can create these assignments and quiz. So if you want to set some form of matrix or assessment, you can set those within the Google Classroom itself. You can post questions or instructions for the students. So if you want them to read up on a particular topic for next week class, you can also post that there as well. You can adjust, you can add subject teacher if you so wish, like a PE teacher, a physical education, a reading teacher, a physical education teacher. All right, so that is basically what we want to cover, all the things that we want to cover in this presentation. If you have any questions, comments, before we actually go into the hands-on section of it, please let me hear right now. I just stopped sharing. And I think somebody's waiting to come in, Mr. Minot. Any questions, any concern, any burning issues before we go into the hands-on presentation?
I have a question or something I'd like you to touch on, please.
Yes.
How can I see my students when I'm presenting? Because I have that issue when I'm presenting, I'm not seeing my students. So if you can also touch on that.
Okay, when you're using Google Meet to present, you're not able to see the student?
No.
Okay, that's a challenging one, but what we can do is actually divide if you're using a laptop, you can divide the screen into two. So you have one section that deals with just the presentation, what you're doing, and the other section that deals with the Google Meet.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Some persons are saying they're not seeing the screen.
Oh, they're not seeing? It's stopped now. Okay. I'm not sure if everyone was able to see the presentation. Okay, all right, so let me go into the hands-on section, and what we're trying to get to is to actually start.
Mr. Brown?
Yes, go ahead, please.
I have a question, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Do we have to use the Google Meet with the Google Classroom, or we can use the Google Classroom and the Zoom instead of the Meet?
Zoom is only limited to 40 minutes. The Google Meet, you use it separate, and it's unlimited, I think, for what you're using it for, so you're not restricted by time. But it's two separate operating systems, so you're able to use both of them. But if you want to use your Zoom, I will show you how to incorporate it inside the Google Classroom. What we're trying to do is to create one single platform where the students go there and have access to all of the information. So that you could add your Zoom link as a resource material. If you prefer to use Zoom for your class teaching, then you could add that, and you could just add it within Google Classroom. But we want to have the student go to one location to access everything, including the assignments, the quiz, how to enter the classroom in terms of Google Meet. But we could change that link if you so wish, if you don't wish to use Google Meet. But Google Meet offers so much more than what Zoom, the free version, would offer.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So once we get to that bridge, I'll show you how to incorporate both of them. And then you can decide which one you want to use.
Okay, Mr. Brown. Thank you.
All right. So let me try to share my screen again. So the first thing that we must have installed on our computer is the Google Chrome browser. So once that is installed on your computer, let me just share my screen with you. 1 second. And please indicate if you're not seeing the screen for the presentation. So, entire screen. All right, so at this stage, I presume that you can see my screen. I have the word classroom.google.com typed into the browser.
Mr. Brown, quick
Yes.
question.
Yeah, man, sure.
My daughter is already using Google Classroom on the computer, right? So I realized that when I went into Google Classroom, it took me straight to her account. So I have to sign in using
Administrative
I don't
education
know.
account.
What do I do from there?
Okay, that is what we're about to do now. We're about to cover that section. We're about to cover that section right now. So you need to actually create your own account.
Okay.
Okay. Could you tell me if you're seeing the web browser with Google Classroom in the top?
Yes, we are seeing it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So once you go onto Google Classroom, the question was just asked a while ago. If there's a previous classroom that was signed into, how do you get access to your classroom now? So this is what would happen on most computers if they already have Google Classroom or a Google account. So the first thing you need to do in this presentation is to actually click on the assign Google account on the right-hand side, top right-hand side, if you can actually see that. And it will give you a drop-down box with all of the options below. We want to scroll to the bottom, depending on how many Google accounts you have on it. So you want to scroll to the bottom where it says add another account. So this is where you would go now to enter the information that you got from the Ministry of Education. So if we click on add another account, all right, I probably have to. I think I have too many accounts signed into my thing. I'll sign up one of them.
I'm not seeing, afternoon colleagues, I'm not seeing or hearing anything. So I'm trying to check with Mrs. Young Brown to see if it's something with her connection.
My apology for that. I was signed out of the account, and there were a few persons still waiting to come in. Okay. Are you still able to hear me?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you. Okay. So the idea. So what I was trying to demonstrate before is that you would go down to the bottom of to other account and try to add another account, right? In this case, you would scroll to the bottom again and use the option that says use another account. So from here, if you have never signed into Google account before, this is where you would enter the information that you got from the Ministry of Education. So if the information that you got from the Ministry of Education was whatever that email is from the Ministry of Education, that's what you would enter here.
Say couldn't find Google account.
Right. So, and then you enter your password that the Ministry of Education gave to you. We strongly recommend that you change this password at some point. So if you can follow along, could you enter the email that you got from the Ministry of Education and the password? Once you enter those, it will bring you to this point where it has the.
Sorry, excuse me, Mr. Brown.
Yes.
We're not seeing your screen. If you're sharing something on your screen,
Oh, you're
I'm
not
not seeing
seeing
it.
my.
I'm only seeing you. No, we're only seeing you. We're not seeing anything being
Okay.
shared.
Okay. Sorry about that again.
Okay.
This sharing.
Oh, create an account.
Okay. It's giving me an error. Let me stop sharing again. I think one of this.
It's okay.
All right, and Google tab, and then okay. All right. So once you're able to, you're seeing the screen now. No, I'm not.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
I am. I don't.
Okay.
I can't speak for everybody, but I'm seeing.
Okay. So once you're able to log in with the username, that's the email and the password, you will get to the screen that has the information about the Google Classroom. Is there anyone in the session that would use their tablet rather than a laptop for teaching?
Yes.
All right, so I will do a separate recording as to how you access it on the laptop, but it's almost the same procedure. The only difference is that you would need to download Google Classroom and Google Meeting. All right, so once you're able to navigate to the screen where the Google Classroom is located, then there are certain things that you can do from here. But what I generally recommend before you start to set up your classroom She not seeing the screen? Oh, yeah. I'm not
It's
sure
there.
why.
You just took it off. We were seeing it before, you know.
Oh, you are seeing it? Okay. Some persons are saying they're not seeing it, so I'm trying to.
Oh, okay.
That's
I'm
it,
not
Mr.
able to
Brown.
see. I'm not able to see Mr. Brown.
Password message.
Okay. Let me try again.
Yes, I'm able to see it now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I think I jumped a little bit though. So let me get back to something else. Okay. So once you're able to log in, right? The first thing you want to do before you get to the Google Classroom is to there are some dots on the top right hand side. I generally recommend that you go there and go to the calendar in order to start to schedule your Google Class meeting. This would be what you'd use to actually see the students. Or you can use Zoom, but Google Meeting is actually good for this session, and it has a lot of plus over the free version of Zoom. So if you can actually go to your calendar and select a date in the future, like say maybe next week Tuesday or next week Monday's a holiday. So next week Tuesday. From here you can actually click on one of the times, or double click on one of the times, and then you start to set up your Google Meeting. So I want to set up the Google Meeting prior to setting up the Google Classroom. And the logics behind this is because once you have the link to the Google Classroom, you're able to do more customization within Meeting than you can do within Google Classroom itself. So what I normally would recommend here is that you give it whatever the grade is. So say it's grade 6.
Trying this to say she's on the right track.
Oh yes, you're right there. Okay, so the
Just on the screen.
screen. Oh, Miss Green, you're on the right track. You actually sign into your Google Classroom, but we're just doing one step before we get into the Google Classroom. Let me just stop the sharing 1 second and show you what I was doing. All right, so let me work with everyone because this is supposed to be a training session. So I'm going to share the screen. Once you log into your Google Classroom, this is what you should see. All right. So this is what you should see. A section at the top that says Google Classroom, and over to the right it says plus, the many dots, which are the Google apps, your calendar, and you're supposed to have an empty or blank area because you don't have any classroom as yet. If you are able to get to this point, just let me know. I don't want to go too fast.
Not seeing anything, Mr. Brown. You're sharing your screen?
Yes, it's keep jumping. All right, let me do it again. It keep jumping off. I'm not sure why. Let me do it again. Sorry about that. Share. All right, so if you're seeing my screen now, it should be saying Google Classroom, calendar, review. So once you're able to log in using the Ministry of Education email and password, this is the point where you would get to. So if you're at this point, let me know. If you're not at this point, just let me know where you are so we can actually see if we can actually go back there. It's a little bit challenging. Okay. It's a little bit challenging going. All right, we can set up the meeting afterward. Let's get into what Google Classroom is all about, right? So for the classroom teachers, I recommend that you set up one classroom For the subject teachers, I recommend that you set up grades. So you would have like a classroom for grade 6, a classroom for grade 5, etc., etc. That's my recommendation. But you can do different things. So, but let's do it. We're looking at this classroom teacher situation now, right? So if you can get to this point where you're at the Google Classroom, there's a plus button at the top of the browser. If you click on the plus button, it gives you two simple options. Is either you join a class or you create a class. At this stage, we want to create a class. So in creating your class, there are some simple things that you will need to add. The name of the class, which as teachers you know best. It could be, just for example, grade 5 white.
Yes, on the right.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. Yellow.
For sections, you don't have to put in a section if you don't want to. And we're not doing subject teaching, so that you can leave in the classroom. So you can just create the class using just the class name. It's a basic requirement. But if you have a number for your classroom, if you're probably 5, say 5-1 or 5A or something, you could put that if that is necessary. And then you create your classroom. So if you're able to see what I'm saying, it takes a couple seconds and it generates the classroom, right? From the classroom here, you will have options to customize the classroom, because one of the first thing it gives you is a custom theme picture. Most persons can change these pictures as you go along. So there's a section right along the picture itself that says theme. So if you select the theme, you can actually change the picture to something else, a different theme, etc. Or you could actually upload your own picture if you so wish, right? The importance of Google Classroom is that there are tabs at the top of it. The first one is stream, the second one is class, the people, and grades. And let me go into them one, right? So on the stream, basically it gives you information that you're sharing with your class. So if you want to share something quickly with your class, you can go to stream. So you just want to share maybe a YouTube link or something, and you could just click on just below where the picture is located for your theme, you could, or your header, you could share something in the class. Once you click on that, you could have basically you can add. We'll get back to this shortly. You can add it from your Google Drive. It could be a link. It could be a YouTube, to open YouTube, and you add that information, right? But what I want to share with you is the information that is under the classroom itself. So under the classroom, this is where you customize and you set up your subjects. So for instance, if I'm teaching grade 5, this is grade 4 green, and you want to create the different subject areas, then this is where you come to do that. Under people, this is where you add your students, and their grades from the different assignment will come in here, right? So let's try to create the subject areas quickly, because this is critical to the Google Classroom. So to create the subject areas, you click back on classwork, sorry, and there is a create button that is just below classwork. If you should click on the create button, it gives you the various options. For subject, it is the same thing as topic. So we're gonna click on topic to create our subject. So if the first subject is, say, is language arts, sorry. You just type in language arts, and then you click the add button. we'd want to create all of our subjects one time. So by the time we start to roll out our Google Classroom, the information is readily available. So we go back to create again, topic, and we create something for mathematics. And we create all our subject areas here. And we can go back and create science. And if I'm going too fast, you can let me know. And then another subject could be, what's the other subject? Social study. Social study. Once you create all your subject areas, then you start to, this is where now you start to think about ideas as to what you want the student, what you want to teach for social study for this week. If it's something that you have the material already, you can easily upload it from your computer to the classroom. Let's say you just wanted to share a YouTube topic. We could go say mathematics, sorry about that. We could go create again. And in this time, once the material that you want to share with your students, those are posted on the material. So if you click on the create button and then create materials, it gives you the option to then customize it if you want it to share to all your students. And you must also choose the area that you want to share the material. So if it's a mathematics topic, under the section that says topic, choose mathematics, and it will post that information. So you give something about the topic. So let's say you want to teach the children about whole numbers. You don't have to put a description if you don't want to, but you type in the title, and then under add, I could go to add and say add a YouTube. I could be a file that I have on my computer. It could be something that is in my Google Drive. So remember, teachers, now that you have a Google Suite account, you can store all of those materials that you had before. So if you had videos and stuff, because your Google Drive is large enough to store all of that information. So even if you're not on your computer for any particular day, you could still use any phone, any computer, and log into your Google account, and you will have access to all of your teaching materials. So they are actually stored in what we call a virtual cloud. So there's no need to worry that even if your computer crash or your phone crash, that you're going to lose all the material. All of this is stored into Google Cloud. So there's no need for you to worry about that. So if you click on YouTube.
Excuse me, Mr. Brown, sorry to break you.
Yeah, no problem, go ahead.
Could you just do, when you're finished, could you just do the adding material with another subject area? I missed the one you did. I didn't process it.
Okay, all right, no problem. All right, so say we want to, for this topic, we're teaching whole numbers, and we want to add a YouTube video for the students to see what are whole numbers. And this is mathematics. So it will open up YouTube, and you type in the same topic area, whole numbers. You do a search. It will come up with a few options. You can listen to the YouTube video. If you decide on whichever one after you listen to it, then you can just add it. And then once it's added to the bottom, the option to either post it comes up to the top right-hand side, right? So on the top right-hand side, if you don't wish to share the information with the student until a future date, you could schedule it, or you could save it as draft, meaning that it's something that you're working on. You don't want the students to see it right now, right? But if it's something that you want the student to see right away, you go ahead and post, right? Once you post the information under the topic, which is mathematics, you will have the YouTube video for whole numbers. If you go back to stream, you will actually see that information posted there as well. So whole number would be the topic on the stream, right? Whenever you're finished, you can go back to your class by clicking on the 3 lines to the top left-hand side to get back to all your classes, right? And we were customizing materials, teaching materials for grade 4. So let's say we want to add another material source for another subject. We go back to classroom because we start everything in our classroom. So classroom, and at the top of the classroom, there's an option to say create. So we click on the plus button to create, and this will give you the information that you want to add. So in this case, we want to add materials for the students to read, watch a video, or something. So let's say we click on material again, and make sure, let me start again. We must be on the tab that says classwork. Then we must click on the option that says create, and then go down to material. The first thing I recommend that you do when it gets here is to type in the topic that you want to teach. Say we were on, say we want to teach about the different cities in Jamaica, right? So the capitals. So we want to teach about the capitals. You add that, and then the second thing you should do is to select the subject that you want. So this is social study. So we go to topic, ensure that we select social studies, and select it. We're giving it to all students, and then we add the information for capital cities in Jamaica. All right. Once we have that, we then click on the add button. The add button it could be something that your material that you already had already. So if it's something that you had already, you could just click on file, and then it will give you the option to upload it. So if you had a nice document that you found somewhere on the internet and you download it, you could come here to where it says file and upload. Now, because you're on the Google Suite platform, everything that you store in your Google Drive will be there as well. So you can either access it from your Google Drive, but if it is not in your Google Drive, but it's on your computer, you go to upload. But I'm strongly recommending that as teachers, we start to store our things in Google Drive. So even if the computer crashed tomorrow, once you log in back with the Ministry of Education email, you get back all the information that you stored. So even if you download something off the internet, start to practice to store them into Google Drive. I will show you in a little while how you can access the Google Drive from the browser, as well as you can actually download the Google Drive application onto and install it on a computer.
Excuse me, Mr. Young Brown.
Yes.
For the section where you put the name of your class, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you change what you initially put? Like
Okay.
if you want to change the name of the class.
Okay, excellent question. So we have to first get back to the class section. So to get back to the class section, there are 3 lines on the top left-hand side. If you click on those lines and then click classes, if I had a class that was called grade 4 green. Suppose I want to edit the name of the class. I can just click on the 3 lines right there beside the word grade 4 green and click edit. So
I'm not seeing that.
Oh, you're not seeing? Are you on a tablet or are you on a computer?
I'm on a computer.
Okay, so tell me, where are you able to get to the section where you can see all your Google Classrooms?
No, I'm not at that section. I'm at the section that has the class code and the meeting link at the top up there where you see the background.
Okay, so the class code. Okay, so the class code, and so you're already inside the classroom. So
yes.
So if you can do it here as well. If you're already inside the classroom, there's a wheel at a little wheel diagram at the top right hand side. You can go click on that, and it will give you the option to change or edit your classroom as well.
Okay, I saw it.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
this section also give you other information where you can also tailor to the class. So if, for instance, if you don't want to allow student without a Ministry of Education email to enter this class, you can turn on that option as well. So it's only the Ministry of Education, or you can disable it or enable it. If you can show turn on the option for parents, so you can actually set up what I normally recommend to. Here it says, in this section, it says that you can actually allow the student to post comments. I would disable that function because the student oftentimes posts a lot of things that you will have to go and then start to vet and to remove. So if once you click on the wheel to get to your classroom, I strongly recommend that you disable the section that says don't allow students, only teachers alone can post comments. So
Hi, Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't see how you went into that part. Could you just
Okay. Yeah, man. Sure, no problem. Let me discard this and go again. So we were at the section where the person is already in the classroom. So they're looking at the tabs that says stream, classwork, people, grades. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. So at the top right-hand side, there's a little wheel that you can click on to edit the classroom from there as well. So you could, and I strongly recommend that you do that in order to ensure that all the settings for this class is conform to what you want. And one of the recommended one is to stop the students from posting comments. So you click on the wheel that is right there, the little gear wheel, and scroll down. Once you scroll down, you start to see the additional options. Options will be how to share how to invite students to the classroom. What is the classroom code if you just want to, if your students are capable of just entering the code on their own. But my recommendation is, especially for grade 1, is that the teachers enter the students and not allow the students to enter themselves. But anyway, on the stream, there's a section that says student can post and comment. I strongly recommend that you disable the student comment, so it's only the teacher can post and comment. The student can send you email separately, but once you make those changes, then you click the save button. And that will apply and upgrade or update any information that you had for your class. So we went through the step of how to add resource material after we add our classes. So our subjects, we add all our subjects, social study, science, mathematics, language, art. We want to know, how do we add our students? So under the section at the top that says people, you will go there and start to add your students. This is what I recommend, especially for the lower grades, because the students will not be able to navigate the system, because the new system very easily. So if you go ahead and add your students, because I think you should have a breakdown of the list of students from your grade. So on the section that says student, once you click on that, there's an option that says you can type the name or the email of the student. In this section, you will type the email for the student. I don't have an email for any student, but remember, only the Ministry of Education email can go here. So although we're on the system now, I don't think all the students have access to their email. So we will probably just continue billing out our content and ensuring that and add the students that we have. So once you enter the email, you just enter it and then hit the enter button, and it will then, you can add more than one email, and then when you're ready, you click the invite button towards the bottom. So let's say I was trying to add a student that was not on the Ministry of Education email system, right? If I try to do that, hit the enter button and send the invite to the person. It will tell, once the person tries to get in, it will say you don't have access to this classroom because you don't have the correct email, and it will advise them to use a different email address, right? One that belongs to the Ministry of Education, right? So once you send the invite, the students will wait on the invite, and once they log into their email, they will see the invite there. So one of the things that, let me get back to classroom again. One of the things that we want to do is to ensure that we set up our meeting classroom. And then once we set up our meeting classroom, we then move to the section where we set up a quiz, right? So setting up a quiz can be time consuming, and you have to have that material prior to writing the quiz. A quiz can be multiple choice, it can be in different format, it can be short answer. But just remember, if there are short answer questions, then you'd have to reserve the right to mark that paper afterwards, so the student won't know the grade immediately. So let's get to how do we set up our meeting, our virtual meeting. Just like we set up our Zoom, there's a way to set up our meetings, right? There is an option in Google Classroom to set up a Google Meet virtual meeting, but I don't recommend it. As you can see it right here, it says Meet. The reason why I don't recommend this is because the option to tailor it is not there, meaning that you only have the code to join the classroom and you share that code with the student. That's a meeting link, just like what we share with you today, but you don't have the option to say, okay, I want this meeting to start at 8 o'clock. So I don't want students to come in there prior to that. It will prompt them that the meeting won't start until 8 o'clock. You have the option to set it as a reminder in your calendar for future reference. So you know that, okay, from Monday to Friday, and if I'm a reading teacher or subject teacher, then I will just set up the meetings for those times that I have class, right? So what I recommend in this case for Google Meet virtual meeting, same thing as your Zoom, is that at the top right-hand side, there's the multiple dots again. You would switch from there and go into what we call our calendar, right? So if you're still able to see my screen, I'm now in the calendar section, right? So in the calendar section, this is where you go to set up your Google Meet. You only need to do this once, and you don't need to do it again, right? So for instance, say I want to set up my first Zoom, Google Meet classroom meeting for the 26th.
Excuse me, Mr. Brown.
Yes, go ahead.
It seems as though your screen is frozen. We are not seeing that part that you're in calendar.
Why every time I switch from one to the other is... All right, so I'm going to stop it and start it again, all right?
I don't think we're seeing it because it's another tab. When you click the calendar, it opens another tab, so that's why.
Yeah, I think that's why, for real, yeah. So let me get to the other. Yeah, I was on a single tab, that's why. I wasn't on the entire screen, for real. All right, so let's get to, I think it's this one. All right. So if you're able to see the screen now, once we click on calendar, we click on calendar using the multiple dots that says Google Apps from the top right hand side, and we choose calendar. The reason why I'm recommending this one is because you can customize, you can edit the Google Classroom virtual meetings from here. Let's start by creating your first classroom virtual meeting and copy the code so we can actually send that to our students.
Mr. Brown?
Yes?
Can you show me how you go into the calendar? Because I'm seeing a calendar, but it looks different from what you're displaying on your screen.
Okay. Okay, no problem. No problem. So let me do it again. So if we click on the multiple dots, and then go calendar from here.
Okay, I see it now. Thank you.
Right, you should face with this option, and I think you can actually change the view to from daily to monthly. Right. So from the monthly view, we can actually select a date. So hold on. Okay. So from the monthly view, let's say we want to set up our first classroom for October 26th. So we select that date, October 26th. It's a Monday. And then you're faced with some various times. So say you want your class to start at 8 o'clock each morning. You click on the timeline along the 8 a.m. and it will then bring up the Google Meet information. So first thing you need to do is to type in a title for this. So this would be probably this is my grade 4 class. All right, let me do virtual class. So this is what the students will come to, right? Now, for this session, this is why I say you can customize it. So the class will start at, you can click on the time for Monday the 26th at 8 a.m. and we could run this class maybe up until say 2:30. It don't mean that the meeting will go all the way up to that. It just wants the starting time. The starting time is the most important thing. We want to set this up in a calendar because our calendar will be our reminder, and it will pop up on our phone to remind us that we have a class starting X time. We want this class to be repeated weekly, so weekly on Mondays. So we're going to select the option that says under does not repeat and change that to weekly on Monday. Right? The next thing we want to add to our information is the Google Meeting video conference. This is what we're going to use to make the call. Right? So once you add that to it, it automatically gives you a Google Classroom meeting code. Right? There are other information that you could add to it, the location, whatever, but this is critically what you need right now. The Google Meeting code, the time for your class, how long your class will last, reminders and tasks and other things there. Once you have that covered, then you click Save. So once you click Save.
Mr. Brown?
Yes?
Kindly go back a little for me, please.
Yeah, man, no problem.
And just add setting up my day, the 26th, and the time. Just go back a little for me, please.
No problem. So if we are on the same path, we're saying that our calendar, we choose our date is the 26th. At the top, we choose our time, which is at 8 a.m. So 8 a.m. And we choose a time which we have the meeting or the class will go up until 2:30, just for argument's sake. From there, there's something called joining with Google Meet or something like that. So you want, all right, let me remove it. It will say add Google Meet video conferencing initially. So if you click on that blue bar that says add Google Meet conferencing, it will then automatically produce the Google Meet. Yes.
Where you have all day does not repeat. Okay, just go back to that.
Okay.
So we
right.
say,
so the default is that it says all day does not repeat. But we want to change it from does not repeat to weekly, Monday to Friday. So we click on does not repeat and change it to weekly on Monday.
Okay, all right.
So this is just telling Google that your meetings will be every day from Monday to Friday.
Okay.
All right, so once you complete that, then you should click on the section that says add Google Meet video conferencing, right?
Okay.
And then it will automatically create your Google Meet classroom. So all we need to do from here is just click on the save button. So this information is now saved in our Google Calendar, but we want to share this information with our students. So to share the information with our students, we click back. Now that you have your Google Meet set up and it runs from Monday to Friday every week, we click back on the blue bar and we want to share this information now with our students. So there are two ways to do this. You can send it by email, but my recommendation is to use the option. Sorry.
Mr. Brown?
Yes?
Question. What if you had gone ahead and customized and select Monday to Thursday? How would you select it to send to your student?
Okay. So we click on once you save it, you click on the blue bar. If you click on the blue bar from here, it will bring up back your Google Classroom, right? It will bring up back your virtual class that you just shared, right? At this point, you want to share, you could send it to your students by email, but there's an option that says you can copy to the grade that you just created. So if you're seeing that there are 3 dots on the top right hand side beside right, so you can actually copy to the grade that you just created.
Okay.
So there are many ways to do this, or you could beside the Google Meet, there's a little icon beside the join with Google Meet. There's a little icon to the right hand side. You can actually click on it. It's a copy button, and you copy the link. So I want you to copy the link, and we're doing both ways. So I want you to actually copy it to the Google grade that you created. Right?
Wow. That round is heavy for me.
Yeah. It's a learning curve, but we get there. All right. So if we copy the link and copy it and then save it, we'll save it to our classroom. I think I have 2 of them created. Okay, so let me see if I can get back without changing the tab. No, I changed it. All right, so I need to get back. So I'm gonna switch back to the classroom. So let me just stop sharing this tab and just switch back to the other one, right? So if we had copied, so let me stop sharing that screen. And get back to the Google Classroom. All right, so let me just refresh my page and see if the Google Meet that we created was shared with our students. So on the stream, if that information was shared, it would be here. Oh, sorry. Green. All right, sorry about that. Let me get off this one and get back. All right, so So this is something that you want to share with your students, right? So how the best way to copy the link that you just created? It should be here in the Google Classroom under the meeting that was generated. But you can also add it to the stream. Remember, the stream is where you will share quick information with your student, right? So if you had copied the link and we get back to the classroom, and we're in the classroom that we just created, on the stream, there's a section that says share something with your class. So we will type, probably say it's the virtual classroom, and then under the section that says add, we just add a link, and we just paste that link that we copied from the Google Classroom, and then click the add link. So the students will have two options to join the classroom. So and then once you're finished, you click on the post button. Sorry about that. Once you're finished, you click on the post button. So from here, the students will have two options to join the classroom. They could do it from the information that you share with the class, because once you share it with the class, all the students within the class will get a notification in their email about what you share with them. So anytime you want to share something quickly, you use the stream and just share it. But if you're rolling out content for your classroom, always use your classwork and not the stream. The stream is just when you want to share something quickly. So the students still have the option to use the generated meeting link, or they use the video classroom meeting link that we just shared, right? So for persons who have email for their students, they probably can start to add them here. Or for persons who want to invite the students, they can also do that. So let me get to the section where we want to look at subject teaching. So for the subject teachers, you will have to create a classroom that is, my recommendation is independent of all the grades. So it will be the same thing you're teaching to the grades, but yeah, the classroom will be independent of, the grade 5 will be independent of grade 6. So in that case, for your subject teachers, I know you might have a few subject teachers, Mr. Minor, probably online, physical education. So for Mr. Minor, this one is for you. You click on the, once you get back to the classroom. So to get back to the classroom, let's do that again. There are 3 lines on the top left-hand side, which indicate the classes. So we click on the 3 lines and then choose the option, say classes. But this is just for the subject teachers. And in this case, we use Mr. Minor as probably an example. So we click on the plus button here and say create a class, right? What Mr. Minor would need to do here is I would say, give it the grade, say grade 6. And the subject is physical education. You don't need a classroom, so you need to have the subject and the grade that that subject applied to. So we then go create. And it will generate our class, right? So this is our grade 6 class for the physical education. We could probably tailor the name, just make sure so it have something like So physical education, let me just say that again. But the subject is there. And then you start to, I still would recommend that you start to organize it just the same as how the classroom teacher would do it. But I don't know what are the topics that you would teach in physical education. So you would just roll out topics, and to create your topics, again, we just go to the classroom, click on the create button, create a topic that you want to teach for that class, for that grade. I'm not sure that the topics, it could be, maybe you want to teach something about cricket as a sports. So once you create your topics, then you start to add your content to that topic. And again, we ensure that we're on the classwork tab, click the create button, then we start to add material to this topic. So the topic is about cricket, but we want some material. So we probably want a YouTube video to start with to grab the attention of the student. So we could create a material that's centered around cricket. We could click on our add button and say we want to get it from YouTube, and we search for some videos that deals with cricket as a sports. This might bring in a whole heap of other thing. All right, so this one says how to play cricket, right? So we could choose that one, add it, and then ensure that it falls under the topic that you want. So we ensure that we click on the cricket topic, and then you post it to the student. So in this subject teaching now, the students will get a notification that a new material about cricket was posted to the class from the physical education teacher. They will come and click on the video, and they could watch it, right? But you could roll out many contents, right? So let's start to look at how do we set up a quiz, because this is where it becomes time consuming. So we're going to set up a quiz for a multiple choice quiz with probably just 3 practical questions. There are 2 ways that you can do this. You can do it from in Google Classroom, or you can go back to your multiple section and then choose forms, right? But there are many ways to do it. So let me do it from within Google Classroom. So say I was in my grade 4 green, and I click on classwork, and I click on, and I want to set a social study quiz. So I click on create, and I click on a quiz assignment. Now this quiz assignment, I will call it end of term quiz, test. Test. So this is the end of term test, right? The instructions optional here, we'll put those in the quiz, right? And then we want to click the create button, because when you click the create button, you can use different formats to do your quiz, but my recommended one is the form. You could use a document, or you could use a form, but my recommended one is a form. So you can create a form from here. It will, all right, so it's gonna take me away from the shared screen. So if you click on create the form, let me just stop and get over to the form section. So once you click on the create form, this is what it will populate, right? So teachers, the first thing you need to do is to give the test a name, right? On the top left-hand side, there's a section that has the title. So this is a social study test, right? So it is we could give it the, we could give it, this is the end of term. And then it's our social studies test, right? Once you give it a name, so once you go back to your Google Drive, because these forms will be stored, these tests will be stored in your Google Drive. You can easily identify the name. So let's start to create a test now, right? So once you put the name up there, it automatically populates here. You can change it if you so wish, right? In the description, we could give the students some information like, answer all questions then we start to look at the type of information that you want to get from the test. So this is where you have to put on your thinking cap a little. So one of the first thing I recommend is that if you're setting up a test, ensure that you collect some critical information like the name of the teacher, the name of the student, name of the teacher, the grade. So for instance, I could have this topic and I say student name. In this section, on the right-hand side, it tells you how do you want to treat this question that you're asking. Do you want it to be a short answer? Do you want it to be a paragraph that they're writing? Do you want it to be a multiple choice? In a student name scenario, it's always a short answer. So the student will then enter the information below. So when is enter. Oops. Sorry about it. Let me just do this again. So we're looking at student. And short answer is okay. And you want, at the bottom, it says requirement. For all the options that you want the student to answer, you save them as, change them to required. So the student name would be compulsory. That means that the student cannot submit the paper without entering their name, right? Then we want to add other things. We want to add something that represents the grade. So we could say on the right-hand side, there's a plus button. It says you can add the question options. So in these options, we add in another question. But this time, again, it's a short answer. And
Excuse me, Mr. Brown.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm not seeing that add-on thing on my side here, on my laptop.
On the right-hand side, you're not seeing the plus button?
No.
Okay, if you're not seeing it, it's because maybe you're not clicked into one of the options in the sheet. So could you just scroll down and just, once you click in there, it gives you the option to add. It appears. All right, so critical information, we want to set up the student name, And then we want to set up another short answer to say the grade. For the subject teachers, you want to change this from a short answer if you're doing a similar test across the grades. You could change it to a drop down. So you would have the student selecting the option if they're in grade 3, if they're in grade 4. So you could have a drop down for the subject teacher. But for the regular classroom teacher, I would just recommend that you just leave it as short answer and a grade, right? Then we want to add something else as the name of the teacher.
Excuse me, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, man, sure, go ahead.
If you're sharing your screen, I'm not seeing it.
Anyone else having that problem?
I'm seeing it, Mr. Brown.
Okay, all right. I'm going to stop and
I'm
start
seeing
again.
it also.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Brown,
yes.
What happens sometime is that when it changes over, when the screen changes over, but what the teachers can do, if you're not seeing, you can look in the participants section and the screen will be over that side on the Independent City. So if you look at under the participants, you'll see Mr. Brown's face, and then you'll see the shared screen. So whenever it comes up and you're not seeing it, just look over the participant side, and you should be able to see it.
All right, thanks for that, because I'm unable to see what you guys are seeing. So thanks for that. All right, so if that helped, let me continue. So we want to add the name of the teacher. Again, if this is a test that you're doing for all of the grade 6 and it's from a particular subject, you could do a drop down, right, to add the name of the teachers. So let me just do an example of what that could be. So it's a drop down. So we choose the option to say name of teacher, right? And in the section that says option 1, we give the name of the first teacher could be, oh, my bad. Could be Young Brown, right? And we could go to option 2 and we could select another name. Let's say Green. And we could do another name. Baker. So we want this to be a compulsory too. So the student must select this option. So we turn on the required mode. We want the student to also enter their grade. So we want that to be required as well. We don't want them to leave it blank. So they can't submit the form if it's not there, right? Now, we can preview how the form will look by a look at the top right-hand side. There's an icon that represents the eye. So we could click on that to see how the form looks so far, right? What we are doing so far, right? Let me just stop this and then show you what it looks like so far. Let me choose.
Excuse me, Mr. Brown.
Yes, go ahead. Let me choose window rather than switching back and forth. So, yes, go ahead, please.
For the teacher's name,
Yes.
if you have listed 4 names, but there's a 5th thing that said add option. How do I get rid of it?
Okay. Okay, that is only there because it's giving you an option to add additional information, but if you do nothing, it will just go away. But
Okay,
if you accidentally click on it and the option 5 appear,
yes,
on the right hand side there's an X. You can just click beside it that says remove.
okay,
If you accidentally go on it, right?
thanks.
All right. So let me get back to what the form look like so far. So this is a preview of the form. This one. So this is what the student will see. The name of the test, the option to enter the student name, they must type that in. You could set up an option where we'll get there shortly if you want the student to collect the student email, right? Then you have to enter the grade, the name of the teacher. So now when you click on the teacher, you have a drop down with a different list of teachers, right? So let's get back to our quiz, because there are some other components that we need to add there. So let me, okay, yeah, I want to read it. So I start to share again on the, all right. So now we need to start to put some questions to our quiz, because we have some critical information that we input already: the name of the student, the grade that the student belongs to, and the teacher. If it's only one teacher in this case, and you don't need a drop down, you could just easily change it to a short answer, or you could just enter the information itself, right? So let's click on the add button again. The add button is just to add questions. You could import questions, you could add a text, you could add pictures, but we get to those, add videos and so on. So we want to add our first question to pose to the student. And in this first quiz, it's a multiple choice. Let's say we ask the student, what is the capital of St. Catherine? Argument say, what's the capital of St. Catherine? Right? Our first option, we could put whatever you want to put here, halfway through. Second option, we could put Maypen. It could be anything, random things. But one of them should be the right answer. Then Chester. Burton. So we put our options below. Now we need to indicate to the test which one is the correct. It must be a requirement. The student must answer. But we want to ensure that we give the test a grade. Okay, hold on 1 second. So once we have that information, let me just check. Okay. All right, there is something that we need to turn on our test, because right now it's just seeing it as a form, but it's not seeing it as a test. So I should have done that before. So let me just navigate over to where that information is. So again, on the gear wheel, we want to change our form from a form to a test. So we click on the gear wheel, and it says general, presentation, and quiz. We want to click on the word quizzes and turn this to make it a quiz, right? Once you select to make it a quiz, you click on the save button. So now when I enter, when I enter a question, it will then ask me to select the correct answer and select how many points or grade I want to give to this question. So say, for instance, I want the correct answer. Oh, I don't have the correct answer here, so I need to, for me.
Yes, sir, I was about to say you don't have the correct answer.
Yeah, you understand me? All right, so the question is asking, what is the capital of St. Catherine? All right, so let me change this to Spanish. Boom. Right? So then we go back down to answer key. So this is critical. Here, you want to select the correct answer, and you want to select the amount of points you want to give to that student for answering that question correctly. So we could say that that question value two marks, right? So once we change the marks, select the correct answer, then we click on done to actually go back to it. So far, we have inputted one question, value 2 marks, and it shows you down the bottom with the correct answer. And we ensure that this question is required. There are times when you want to give some additional information to the student. There are 3 dots at the bottom where you can add a description. So the description would be something like to say, read the story and answer the correct questions, right? And answer the questions below. It could say something like that, right? If it's a case where you set up a lot of questions and you can shuffle the options in which the order of the questions appear, it's not a necessary thing, but you can do that, right? So let's add at least one more question to our thing. So if we click on add question again, I remember the session is being recorded, and I'm hoping that it's capturing all of the screens at the same time. So you should be able to have access to it afterwards. So let's say we want to add another question, well, we're doing social study, right? So this other question is maybe, what is the
what is our national dish?
Oh Lord, what is our national dish? Okay, so it could be rice and peas, could be ackee and salt fish. It could be roast bread, food, and it could be stew peas, because everybody loves stew peas, right? So once we roll out the questions, we select, if this question was a multiple choice, we select multiple choice. If it was a short answer, it was a drop down answer, select from the box or whatever, we could do that. But in this case, it's a multiple choice. So then we want to select the correct answer and set our grade. So in this case, really spelling? Anyway, it's ackee and saltfish, and we want to set it 2 points. I'll click OK, done. And this is a compulsory question again, so we want to turn on the required that the student must answer this question. They can't submit the forms.
Sorry, Mr. Brown?
Yes?
Is there a way to make everything compulsory as opposed to having to select it individually? Next thing you might forget to click it one at a time. So is there a way to make everything that you put on the
Yeah.
test compulsory?
Yeah, there's a way. But it's a shortcut way.
Okay.
So this is how I do it, right?
Okay.
So I'm gonna do it now. So I create a question with all the parameters set up in the question, just like what I do. But instead of clicking add a new question to the right, I just duplicate the one that I had before. So I duplicate this, so
and
it's
then you
always
change the
there,
question.
and then I just change the question. You understand?
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, man, no problem. So we could get rid of this, right? So let's say, so we're finished with our quiz now, and it's an end of term for social studies, right? But we're not finished with setting up the parameters because, you know, we don't want the students them to cheat. So we have to set some parameters and some limits so the students won't cheat, right? So to do that, we go over to the gear wheel and we select the setting option. So if you select the setting options, there are some critical information that we want to select. The first one says collect email address. Since it's only the students and we ask for the student name, you don't have to do this, right? Because it would mean that it will, in the processing of the data, they would have to enter one email address. So we can leave that one blank. So just in case they don't remember them email address in its entirety, right? This section that says restrict the users to the Ministry of Education, that depends. Email, I would strongly recommend that you leave it at that. But if you have a case where there are times when you have like 2 students in the same household, 2 of them in the same grade, and they only have 1 device. So in a case like that, then you will untick the restriction, but only under those circumstances, if you know you have those circumstances. The other limit that you want to do is that you want to set the number of times the student can submit this thing. So if you select only 1 submission per student, so you'd have to indicate to the student you only have 1 attempt, so that you can put in your description at the top of the quiz. You only have 1 attempt to do this quiz, right? You don't want to allow the students to edit or to see the summary or the charts, right? Those are administrative issues, so you don't want to have the student doing that. So then we go back to presentation. I strongly recommend that you take the one that says show the progress bar. What this does is allow the student to see that, okay, I've completed question 1 and 2. I have X amount of questions leave, right? If you want to, because you know some students will take a picture of the quiz and then they share it with their friend, and if you want to shuffle the questions around, you can shuffle the questions around so they don't appear in the same order, right? So if they call a friend and say, oh, question 1 is the answer of question 1 is B, if you shuffle the questions around, then the next person who is doing the quiz, question 1 could be your question 10 on your paper. Understood? And then we get to quiz, and we ensure that we set it as a quiz. If it's a case where you have questions on your quiz that requires you to review it before you give the final grade, I strongly suggest that you take the section that says later and after manual review of the questions, right? You can determine what you want the students to see. If you want them to see that they miss a question, so they have to go back to the question. That is critical. You can, if they have the correct answer, that I don't do. So you have to untick that. You don't want, because the student will just check any eeny, meeny, miny, moe and guess it until they get the correct answer. So please remember, you must untick the section that says, show them the correct answer. Don't want to do that. Then next, you can have the point value so them have an idea as to how many scores they have so far. And once you're finished with this settings, you must click the save button at the top right hand side. So we'll click on the save button at the top right hand side. So now our test is set. So we're going to look at two simple things before we carry the test into the classroom, right? One is respondents. Respondents is what the students send back to you. So what they send back to you will be saved in our Excel sheet. You can determine from the respondents if you want to turn on the test or turn off the test. As it is now, it is saying accepting responses. It means that accepting responses mean that anyone can submit this paper now and it will accept it. But you should always turn this off if you don't wish to share this information, right? If you don't want anybody to submit. It will tell you the total amount of marks that this paper on this paper. The total amount is 4 marks. We can also customize the way the test look, because as it is now, it's just a plain white background with the top of it that says end of term test. So we could come to the customize wheel, which is at the top beside the gear and the wheel and the eye itself. So if you click on customize theme, you can set an image for your header. It could be an image that is already preset within the Google Classroom. Or you could upload your own image or your own photo. Or you could choose a photo, right? So let's say we use a customized one that is there. Once you click insert, it should then insert that image to the top of the test. So your test starts to look a little bit more colorful. You can fool around with the different colors and things, but those are things that you can do. Once you're finished with your test, then we need to navigate back over to Google Classroom, right? So I'm going to stop the sharing screen from here, and then I'll show you how to add your test now to the Google Classroom. You can also preview your test. You should always preview your test. Make sure that it is looking the way that you want it to look. And you can actually try to answer the questions and all of that to ensure that it is just the way you set it up, right? And all the compulsory questions are there, right? All right. So let's navigate over back to our Google Classroom. So remember, if you're having any issue, just stop me anywhere. So we're back to our Google Classroom, right? Can close that out. And if we go at the beginning, say you're at the beginning, and we're doing green again as the classroom. So this was a social study test. And because we're adding a content, we must go to the classwork. All content except for something that you just want to share with your student quickly, you do them from the classwork tab. So if you click on the classwork tab and then click on create, we're creating a quiz. And we're adding the quiz. And this time we click on the add button to add our quiz, because we already created the quiz already. It's not here, so we can click out of this one. So we add in the quiz, and we add in the quiz from your Google Drive. So every time you add a quiz, you're gonna add it from your Google Drive because it's stored there, right? If it's a quiz that you recently did, it will be in your recent. But if not, you navigate over to your Google Drive to actually find it. It's never upload the quiz because we're not using the upload feature because it wouldn't be graded in Google if you use the upload feature. So if it is not in recent, the quiz will be in the Google Drive. And you just navigate to where it says in the Google Classroom where the quiz would be, right? So in my case, it is in the green classroom and it is the end of term quiz, right? So I click on the end of term quiz and then click on the insert button. Now, there are certain things that we want to set up for this quiz. We want the student to know which quiz it is. So this is the end of term test. If you have some special instruction that you want the student to do, you could place it here. Then we navigate over to the right-hand side, and here now it says, do you want all the students? If it's a quiz for the classroom, then we'll do all the students, right? If it's for the subject teacher, they would select if it's a grade 6 test or it's a grade 5 test, whatever. You select on the points. The default is 100. This is how much the quiz is marked out of for Google Classroom to grade the system. So I strongly recommend that you leave it at 100 because it's just easier for marking, right? Then we go down to the section that when is this quiz due? So you set a due date by clicking on your calendar. So for this is just an example. We want this quiz to be due to be done on the 30th of October. All right. So once you select that, 30th of October, this is where the most important part of the quiz comes in. Which topic does the quiz align with? Which subject? And in this case, we have to change that to social studies. Once you do it to social studies, we can decide if we want to assign this quiz now, schedule it later, or save it as a draft. If you go on to do continuous work, but for now, we're going to assign the quiz, right? So once you assign the quiz, you can approach this in different ways. Under social studies, you will now see a new instruction posted there. End of term quiz. The students will also get an email that the end of term test was posted to the social study class. And they can then access it straight from their email. Once they come in, you will see the test. It will tell you, if you click on the test, once the students start to do the test, it will tell you how many students have submitted the test and what is their assigned and how many it's assigned to, right? So how many turn it in and how many students are assigned to, right? So that is how you would add your test. It takes a little work, but once you have that information, you can set up your quiz and assign them to the different topics. So remember, everything that you want to post to the students must be done under classwork. You add your students and from people. Once they start to submit their paper, you will see the grades come up here, right? You can edit your classroom from the wheel. You can make adjustment. You can create additional class. Now, I have not found a way to delete a class as yet, but you can actually hide the class. So for instance, say you are practicing and you created a class, but that's not the class you want to use at the end of the day. Or for instance, you had grade 6 this year, but next year you are reassigned to grade 4. You can create another class and hide the current class that is there. How do you hide a class? If we click on classes, then beside the classes, there's 3 dots. There's a section that says archive. So you just add this class to the archive. It's not deleted, it's just add to the archive. So you can retrieve it later. But what is happening is that you won't see this class in the list of classrooms that are there, right? You could, as a teacher, you could also share your classroom with another teacher. So another teacher could see what is happening. I don't think you guys have assessors, but in cases where you have assessors, this is what the assessors you would do to ensure that the assessors get access to the class. If you click on the classroom and you click on people, on the teacher, you could add one of the assessors. So that one of the assessors could be like your principal, your senior teacher. So what I strongly recommend for all the teachers is that although you create your classroom independently, you need to add your senior teacher to the classroom as well as a teacher. Because it could be a case where you can't teach the class for that day, but your senior teacher could come in and add information for your student. So you could add, I strongly recommend that you add your senior teacher to their classroom as a teacher, as an assessor, as someone who can assist when you are not able to post your work, right? And then that way you could also learn from each other, right? So we went through the process of setting up, let me just recap, of setting up our Ministry of Education Google Suite email. We link that email to our Google Classroom. We use our Google Calendar to set up our Google Meet virtual meeting classes and paste that Google meeting within the classroom. We were able to use the Google Form platform to set a quiz for a social study, an end of term quiz. These are the basic things that you would need in order to navigate yourself around the Google Classroom. There are some additional things that you can add to it. So for persons who want to explore, if you go to if you click on the multiple dots, again, there's a Google Play Store. I think supposed to be a Google Play Store where you can actually add additional stuff or you could just go on your settings and go to extension. So there are things that you could add to your classroom, like to mark your register and to do other things, right? But you can explore with those, and because I don't really use a lot of them, I just actually stick to the Google Classroom platform. And if you wish, you can actually record your classes so you'd have an idea of the number of students that were present, the type of question that the students will ask, and encourage the students to use the Google Meet section of the the chat section to communicate, especially when you're teaching, because I've not seen an option to raise your hand like what you would see in Zoom, but there are other things that you can turn on to your advantage. Once you're in the Google Meet, you can turn on like caption, so you could it could actually dictate what is being said. You can change the view layout and all of that. But in a nutshell, this is Google Classroom. Is there any burning questions? Anything? Let me just stop sharing my screen and get back to it.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
Can you just quickly run back to add in the children, please?
Okay, sure, no problem. So let me share again. If it's possible, could I get an email? It's not necessary. Sorry. So let's share the screen. Get to the classroom. Classroom. So once you're in your classroom, if you're seeing my screen, it should be there shortly. And you get to your classroom. To add your students, I recommend that you do it this way. There are many ways to do it. There's one option that is right here where it says under the name of the class, it gives you the class code. You could send the code to the student, and when the student click on the option on the plus button to add them themselves to the class, then they enter the code and they will be entered into the classroom. Because we're dealing with different range of ages of students and their capabilities, I don't recommend that option, but this is an option available. My recommended option is to click on the People tab, and under the People tab, you will see Teachers and Student. There's a little plus icon to the right. As I said to you before, I encourage you to add your senior teachers to your teacher list, but under the student list, you will click on the plus button. Once you click on the plus button, it gives you an option to enter either the student name or their email. Because the student name is not added to my contact list, it will not appear. So you'll have to add the student email. Remember, only the Ministry of Education email will be accepted in the classroom. So anyone who tries to enter the classroom with an email that is not a Ministry of Education email will not be allowed. There are options in the test, as I showed before, where you can actually turn off that option, especially if you have more than one student in the class, in the same class. So let's add a student. So you enter the email address of the student. And once you enter the email address and hit the enter button, the option to invite that student now comes to the bottom. Suppose I want to, so you could enter multiple students. You don't have to send out the invite one. So I could add another student. To this classroom, you enter the email and hit the enter button. And you do this for all of your students. And once you have entered all the students, then you click on the invite button at the bottom right hand side. There's an option at the top as well that says copy the link. If you are comfortable with this, you can copy the link also and send it in, like how you already have a WhatsApp group, you send it in the WhatsApp group. But then the student must enter with the Ministry of Education email. So that is why I don't recommend that, because the student might be on a device with multiple email and they didn't select the Ministry of Education email, so it will reject them. So I strongly recommend that you enter the email for the student, so they will then go into their email using the password that the Ministry of Education give to them for that email. Look for the email that you send them and click on the invite from there. Once they click on the invite, it automatically puts them in the classroom. So once they're placed in the classroom, the list of students will be populated below, right here, below where it says student. So I hope that answered that question. Any other burning questions?
Excuse me, Mr. Brown.
Sure, go ahead.
The adding the student can be done in any order, or you have to add the email
Any
in
order.
alphabetical order.
No,
Any
any
order.
order. Yeah, any order is good. Put them in
Okay,
any
thank you.
order. Yeah. And you can add multiple emails. So just add them and just send one invite. So it sends out to all the email.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Yes, sure.
Just a quick question. This is to set up the classroom itself, but what about when we're actively engaged with the students? Are we gonna get some sort of session on how to? I know on Zoom we're able to share our screen and put them in breakout sessions. Are those options available on the Google Meet? Well, obviously the share screen is here, but
yeah,
do they have the option to put them in breakout groups and stuff like that?
I'm not sure if we can do that in Google Classroom. I know you probably would have to assign them in the group from early, and then, all right, my recommendation for that is to create different Zoom session, Google Meet sessions. For instance, you create the group and you say, these students are in this group. And then you actually will give them the option to communicate with each other. And then you assign one of the students the host responsibility. So let me show you what can I share my screen and show you exactly what I'm talking about?
Sure.
All right. All right, so this is like a double. If you can see it, it will be a double screen, right? So I'm actually sharing the screen that I'm on. That's not what I should do. No. Okay. Let me do this again. That's not what I should do. So this is what I would recommend. I would recommend that you do this in the calendar, or you could do impromptu meeting. So you would do it in the calendar. So let me share my screen and show you how I would do a breakout group. All right. So for a breakout group, you could create several meetings, right? It don't have to be in the calendar. You could just do it from the Google Meet itself and create them. But the reason why I recommend calendar is that it gives you you keep a record of your meetings and your groups. So that's the reason why I'm recommending the calendar. It gives you keep a records. So if you want to refer back to something, get a record of your meetings and your groups, right? So for instance, I want to engage my student, say on the 27th, right? All right, let's do it to the 28th because apparently I did the 27th already. And I want to have maybe 3 groups of students, right? So the first group, I will call this group 1, right? And once I type in group 1, I then click on the add Google meeting. Because the time here, it doesn't matter. But we might need it to repeat. So rather than just having one meeting, because the students will go in there. All right, so all right, let's just use all day, right? So they can access the group all day. Simple. Then I create the meeting for that group, right? So this is group 1 and the meeting for the group. Let me save this and I show you how to then assign a group leader. So this is the meeting and the group. So we can click back on this one. That's group 1. We could create another group quickly. All right, let's group 2 is all day meeting, so they can access it anytime. And we create and save. So this is group 2. So group 1, I can then invite the students that I want from group 1. So for group 1, so to add your guests, you go back to the meeting, and on the right hand side where it says guests, because only those guests, only those students will be in this group. So then you will enter the email for the groups, whatever the email address is. And that email will be sent out to the group, right? Now those students will be in that group. You will also be in that group as well as the teacher. So if you want to monitor what the group work is doing. And you have access to the login information also. So the next recommendation that I would say is to assign a group leader. So if you save, and let me go back to group 2, and if I click on group 2 and click on the 3 dots at the top here where it says option, you can change the owner. So that would be a group leader. So they would now have control of the meeting as well, right? So you could enter the email address for that student who is the group leader, and they would have access to it. And then in this way, you would have created a group of students that are doing individual assignments, and they're interacting with and engaging with each other. And you popped in to the meeting if they wish to discuss with you, or if it depends on the time period that you want to do the assignment. That is just my recommendation of how you would engage them in groups.
Okay, Mr. Brown, thank you so much.
All right.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so if you have a class with a group of children that are not able to read properly,
Yes.
You have created your Google slide or whatever the case might be, and you want to add audio to it. You want to say what it is saying, what you have written there. So that is much easier for them and possibly their parents as well. How do you go about recording and adding the audio?
Okay. So if I understood your question correctly, you would say you're using a whiteboard or something and you want to record that video and then put that video on the Google Classroom so the students can actually listen to the audio and watch what you're doing. That's what you're saying?
No, not necessarily watch. I've created a slide.
Oh, you created a slide.
Right, so I've created a slide which has information on the content that we're covering, but I know many of them wouldn't be able to read what it says.
Okay.
So I would like to add an audio to it. How do I go about doing that?
Okay. So it's pretty much, my recommendation here then would be similar to what we're doing now. So then you take that audio, you will be the person explaining what is happening. So in your regular Google Classroom session, you will just share that video with them. And from sharing the video with them, you just like what we do with the share screen now, you'll be able to interact with them. You can look at their faces and you can actually see what their reaction. So you can actually upload the video to your, you could upload the video as well to your Google Classroom ahead of you doing this presentation. So the student could get access to it before you do the presentation. So at least they probably could, you could then go in more detail or explain better once you start the Zoom session, the Google session. So it's just similar to what you're doing now is my recommendation. And then if you want them to have access to the information before, you upload it to your Google Drive. Remember, your Google Drive has a lot of space, so you can upload a lot of things to it, right? And if I didn't say where you get or you upload to your Google Drive, the multiple dots that is on the top right-hand side, once you click on it, and there's something called Drive. And you can go there and go into your classroom, and then you just upload the videos, whatever you have on your computer. So it can store a lot, right? So use it to your advantage. And it records that information for all future reference. So even if your computer should crash tomorrow or it's not working properly, you could get another device and just all of that information will be there. Nothing will be lost.
Excuse me, Mrs. Almond Smith, I'm trying to see if I understand exactly what you are asking. Are you saying that you want to present a slide, but you want to add like a video from WhatsApp to it, or you want to do an oral presentation with the slide?
I would like to do an oral presentation with the slides because I've seen where you can insert audio, but where do you record this audio so that it is safe to
on
drive?
the PowerPoint when you're creating it.
Yeah, that's another option too. Or you're talking about inserting an audio on top of something that you just have a visual for. I thought you were using your own audio voice. You don't want to use your voice.
No, my voice. You want to record my beautiful voice to the slide.
Okay. But you want to overlay that on top of the presentation. So when you upload it to Google Classroom, the student will have your voice over the video.
Right, to make it a little bit more personal.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little editing is needed there.
I know for PowerPoint you're able to add your voice, your audio, but since things are being stored in the cloud in Google Drive, I'm not sure where to go to add audio, to save the audio in Drive so that I can add it to the slide.
Oh,
because
okay.
there is a section where it says insert audio, but where do I save this audio? Where do I record the audio first? I should have said.
Oh, okay. Well, you can use your audio on your computer, or you can. My recommendation is to use it on a phone. So you record the audio on your phone, and then bring that audio into your PowerPoint presentation. And then I probably would have to share my screen to show you how you do that. And once you bring it into your PowerPoint presentation, you will set it up in the animation section where as soon as that slide start to play, it will then play the audio along with the pictures that you see. But that is a little bit outside of Google Classroom, but you have to do a little work outside and then bring it in. Do you want me to show you an idea as to how that could be done?
Sure, if the others don't mind.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, all right. Sure. So let me share. Let me just try to get an audio from somewhere. Let me see. Well, you could record the audio on your phone, then export it to your Google Drive right away, or you could bring it over to your computer. All right. So let me share my screen with you. Because this can be a little bit technical, but let me share my screen with you. And so window. All right, let me know if you are able to see my PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, all right. All right, so if you're able to see the PowerPoint presentation, say, just ignore the content that is here right now. Just pretend that this content is what you want to present on, right? And you could have the audio will represent different slides, right? So I want to overlay an audio on top of this presentation. The audio that I'm going to overlay is something that just say it's raining, right? So in the insert tab at the top, we will go here and click on insert. And we want to look for the section that says you add in an audio, right? So you want to add, either you can record the audio or you add it from your computer. So in the case of Alman Smith, you could go just record the audio. So you just talk. But the only thing about that is that you might have to do the recording more than one time. Because, you know, something might happen or you mess it up. So generally, I would have the recording. So if you record on your phone, then you just go to PC. But anyway you do it, it doesn't really matter as long as you insert it. So in my case, I'm going to insert an audio said that it's raining, right? But in your case, it would be your voice, right? This is just any audio. Now, once you insert the audio, it comes into this format. But there's something that you want to set. So as soon as the student click on this slide, the audio start to play. So we want to animate this audio, right? So to do that, we then have to go to the top of the, yeah, you can do it from here, animation, and then it's already, because you already highlight the audio session, or you just choose the section to the top right hand side where it says on click. So once a student click or change to that PowerPoint slide, it will start to play. So if I did it right and correct, let's see if I did it correctly. So if I did it correctly, an audio should play when I get to that slide. Let's see. I don't think you're hearing the audio. You're not hearing the audio, right?
No,
no, we're not hearing it.
Okay, so let me. So that is how you can do it. So you just overlay your voice on top of it, and then choose animation, and select click on it. You were able to hear the audio at some point?
Yes,
we heard
we heard a
Right.
song. So since
Right,
this
right.
is done in PowerPoint, and it's much easier to be done in PowerPoint, is there a way to convert this PowerPoint now to Google Slides so I can add it to my Google Classroom?
Yes. So oftentimes teachers don't want to share their original material in PowerPoint. But if you're going to do it with an audio, you would have to share the PowerPoint with the audio, right? So let me share again. Let me see if I think I have your question correctly. You're saying you're working with a PowerPoint. Is it a PowerPoint with an audio in it or just a regular PowerPoint?
No, because I had asked before how to add the audio to the Google
Okay.
slide, but it's much easier to add it to the PowerPoint. Is there a way then to convert it, the PowerPoint presentation to Google slide and then add it to the classroom?
Yeah, the good thing about Google is that it's able to accept PowerPoint. It just have a different name when it get there, but it accepts it just the same. So you could either save your file as a PDF, which is what I recommend most of the time if you don't want any fanciness like the audio in there, and then upload it. So let's do this as an example now. So this is my presentation today, my PowerPoint presentation. So let me save this, and I have it. I'm working in PowerPoint, but now I want to share this information to my Google Classroom and my Google Drive. I can do it two ways. I can share it to Google Drive first, or I can just go straight to Google Classroom and add it, right? So we can do it two ways, but my best and recommended way is to share it to Google Drive first and then add it to Classroom. And there's a reason for that. When you share it to Google Drive, it's a backup storage. So it's just that you don't have to put it on a thumb drive anymore. That's your backup storage. If I share it straight to Google Classroom, it will get there, but it will only be in the classroom. So if I want to use this same PowerPoint in another settings, I couldn't use it because it's just in the classroom. So that is my reason for saving it in Google Drive first and then Google Classroom. So let me stop this and I'll show you how to do that, right? So my file is saved on my desktop. The name of the file is how to create a class in Google Classroom, right? So I'm going to go back to the tab that has the let me do the classroom one. Let me do it from Classroom first, and then we get. Right? So we're here in Classroom, right? Could be all classes. I still have to shift, but I just want to show you what I'm getting. The multiple dots that are here, inside that dot is something called Drive. It's a Google Drive, right? So each teacher now have a Google Drive for storage, storing all their data, all their material, all their classwork, all their tests, everything is here. So we click on Drive. So once you click on Drive, I'm going to share the screen again. It will navigate to your Google Drive. Now, inside your Google Drive is set up just like a regular computer. So on the left-hand side, you see Drive, and there are many things that you can do. I can upload a file. I can create a folder. So in this case, where it's a new, I'm going to actually create a folder, right? Or better yet, let me go into my classroom. And I will go into my green classroom. And here, I'm going to create a folder inside my green classroom. And this folder, so if I click on new inside there, it gives me some options of what I want to create. If I want to create a document, upload a file, I tend to like to be organized. I don't like to throw things all over the place. So I'm going to create a folder. And this folder, I'm going to call this folder presentation, because this is your presentation you're doing, right? So it will be presentation. Yeah, presentations. So I create the folder called presentation. It is here now. So then I double click on my presentation folder. There's nothing inside there. But it tells me that I can either drag and drop a file in there, or I can just click on the new button over here to go to the file, right? So if I click on the new button and then say upload the presentation that I want to share with my class. This presentation is on my desktop. It is called How to Create a Google Classroom. So this is my PowerPoint presentation now. So I click open and it will upload, which means that it would send that presentation, my PowerPoint presentation, to the Google Classroom, right? Once it is in my Google Classroom, and if you look at the top, it says my Drive, Classroom, the name of the classroom, and it's in a folder called presentation, right? This is what I want to share with my class next week. How do I do this? I then navigate back over to the Google Classroom by clicking on the multiple dots at the top here. It's going to change again, and I go back to the classroom. So let me stop share and then get back to that. So once I get to my class, I will click on the class. And if this is an assignment, if this is a work that you want to put on a particular topic, then remember we have to use classwork. But if this is something where you just want to share generally with the class, you use stream and then just share something. But I am saying that this was, in this case, it was a social study work. So I go on the class through classwork. I click on my create button and it's material. 9 out of 10 times when you're working in Google Classroom is material that you're gonna add to the class, to the subject and the class. 9 out of 10 times. Because it's only one time alone that you would need to set up topics, and maybe 1 or 3 times for the semester you will need to do quiz, right? But 9 or 10 times is materials. You might ask a question of the student, but most of the time it's material. So we'll click on material, right? Once we click on material, we want to set some parameters. So it's something about the material that you're uploading, right? That is in the PowerPoint presentation. So this is how to set up Google Classroom, right? We want to ensure that it goes to the topic area. So in this case, this argument says just social studies. Then we want to add this video, this PowerPoint. So we click on the add button, and now you have the options. Google Drive, I could have come here and add it straight from my desktop. But remember I said there's a reason why I'm using Google Drive. Google Drive is a backup. So practice to use the Google Drive, because everything that stores on your computer, you can lose it in a second. So once you practice to use the Google Drive, and know that the Ministry of Education provides you with a Google Drive that have enough storage space, use it. So click on Google Drive. Inside Google Drive, if it's a recent document, it will come up here in the recent, which is a recent document that I just uploaded. But say it's not a recent document, say it's something that I uploaded maybe a long time ago. We navigate over to Drive. We know that it's in our classroom folder, so we navigate to our classroom folder. The classroom that we're talking about is grade 4 green, and we know that's in a folder called presentation. So this is what we want to, so we highlight it by clicking and highlight it, and then insert. Once it's insert, the PowerPoint presentation will now be available to the student if I click on the post at the top right-hand side. If I want this information to be available to them next week, then I will schedule it. If I'm still working on the assignment what I'm giving them, I could save it in draft. But if you want them to see it immediately, you go to post. And immediately they will get a notification in their email that their teacher just uploaded some information, right? So that is how you would send your PowerPoint information to the student. You could add some other critical information to it, like some description to say what it is all about and all of that. The student the students will be able to download the PowerPoint as well. And just like what Ms. Alman Smith said, she would want them to listen to her voice on top of the video that is there. So they will, because they can download it, they will have access to do that. All right. I think we've been going almost 3 hours now. So any other burning question, anything that you need to know? Let me just stop sharing this. So I hope that helped. So remember, your Google Drive is a storage that is virtual in the cloud, can hold much more than your free version of Google, and you should use it to your advantage, right? Any other question? Any burning question before we wrap? Okay, no burning question. So remember, the PowerPoint will be shared with you as well as the recording. So you can always refer back to it for future reference. I thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, and I look forward to any feedback as to how the presentation was and how we can assist you going further. Again, I thank you, and I will just wrap here. I'll hand back over to the host.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown, for accommodating us. Mrs. Baker, are you ready for us?
Yes, I'm ready. Afternoon, everyone, again. On behalf of the Independent City Primary Schools Board, administrative body, and staff, I would like to take this time out to thank Mr. Brown for engaging us. I know he's a busy man. I know his schedule is busy, but he has spent this allotted time with us. I just want to tell him thanks for engaging us in such a humble manner and for such awesome presentation. I must admit that I have joined the JTC package, which I have done the Google Classroom, and to be honest, I have not learned what I have learned today. And I must tell you, thanks, sir. You have done this with no bother. Even if we stopped you a million times, it doesn't seem as a problem. Seem to be a problem, and I just want to tell you thanks. I now know how to use my email that I have gotten from the ministry to set up my Google Classroom, and I should say all of us, I think or believe, set up our calendar in order to schedule our daily or weekly work, to send our invitation link for Google Meet, and also to use our Google Forms to create our quizzes. You even went on to show other teachers how to use um, the PowerPoint presentation and to entwine it or to bring it into the Google Drive in order interlock it, I should say, in the Google Drive in order for better feature or understanding. I know all of this goes with practice. So it might be a bulk of information in our heads right now, but as we settle down, because while you were talking, I was actually, for the first time, practicing because I was always depending on my daughter to help me. But I decided that I must learn it for myself. So I actually sat and I had my one device listening to you and one actually practicing. And where you leave me, I would stop you and it wasn't a bother. And I actually can sit now and do it for myself. I must tell you thanks, sir, for really taking the time out to help us. I must also thank the organizers of this seminar today, our principal, Mrs. Young Brown, Miss Ware, and Miss Powell. I have learned a lot, and I'm sure we have really been engaged, and I really want to thank you. Thanks, Mr. Brown, again, and may God continue to bless you.
Welcome. Thank you.
I hand
Thank
back
you
to
all.
Miss Powell.
All right, thank you so much for your vote of thanks, Mrs. Baker. Teachers, we have now come to the end of the agenda that was planned. I'm not sure if Mrs. Young Brown and Miss Ware, who are really the ones in charge of this seminar, who have done all the hard work to get Mr. Brown here, if they have anything to add before we go.
Not much. I just want to say thank you to all those who are on the platform. I have marked the register and I'm hoping that all the names I have, there's a name there that I'm not so sure about, but I've sent it in the chat so the person can respond to me. But I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming on board. And I hope that we have installed and organized our classroom. I know it's going to take some time. I know it's going to be trial and error with everything that we do, but we're here for each other. I know there are persons who have long gone ahead and who have established their classes. So if there's a problem, if there's an issue with anybody in setting up, in adding, in doing anything where this is concerned, I hope that we can all rely on each other to help out those who are not so versed in what is going on right now. Again, I just want to say thank you and have a blessed midterm and Heroes Day when it comes.
Thank you. We wish you the same.
All right. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Mrs. Young Brown. Mrs. Young Brown?
Yes, yes, miss.
Sadler here. You know, I have to get individual attention.
Yes, miss. I know you're in the slow stream. No problem.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
And there is a small fee if anybody wants their classroom to be set up.
Private tutoring.
You know that was coming, right?
This is Young Brown for you.